Dan, I want to bring you back a little bit. If you're elected governor, you're going to have to make some tough choices, obviously. And we've talked about the need for greater investment in infrastructure and higher education in efforts to lower electricity rates. So money has to come from somewhere. In this latest budget deal, the Democrats went along with the Republican governor in cutting the estate tax. We've raised the amount of estate that will not be taxed from $2 million to $3.5 million. So basically, some rich people aren't going to have to pay a little bit more in taxes, and then we have less money to invest in the priorities. When you ran 3 years ago, you said you were open to the idea of cutting the estate tax because you felt it drove rich people out of state, and then we get less tax revenue as a result. I wanted to ask you, is that still your position, or would you have kept the estate tax where it is?
No, what I said, with all due respect, was that we have to monitor every tax in the state of Connecticut for how we compete with other states. And I specifically said that the cliff in the estate tax was unfair. The idea that an estate of $1,999,000 would not be taxed at all, but if the estate was worth $1 more, it would be taxed all the way back to the first dollar, was patently unfair, and I believe that to be patently unfair. So, you know, with all due respect, please don't tell me what my position was. My position is very clear, that we need to look at every tax, income tax, sales tax, other forms of revenue enhancement, to measure how they allow us to compete. Our first two biggest competitors are Massachusetts and New York. Then we have to look beyond that on a regional basis, a national basis, and an international basis. And what we have to do is ultimately raise our revenue necessary to support the infrastructure of our state in a way that is seen as fair and allowing our state to compete. As you know, because I had an interview with you probably last April in your office. At that time, I was the only candidate for governor, or actually I have exploratory or candidate for governor, who had actually embraced a progressive income tax, which I do embrace, and quite frankly, I have embraced throughout this process. So, you know,
So you're willing to say, I don't rule out raising taxes, I just want to do it smart.
Well, I think, you know, sometimes you say things so much better than the other way.
But here's my question. Would you have supported what Rel and the Democrats did in exempting another $1.5 million of estates from any taxes?
I thought it was unusual. I thought the governor's proposal, coming as it did, was an unusual, out of left field proposal. And I'm not sure it got to the heart of the matter, even on the estate tax issue. It was as if the governor once again simply wanted to have a victory, didn't care what the victory was, didn't care about the details. You also have to remember that this is a governor who signed off on raising the estate tax, something that's not been pointed out in any of the stories that I've read.
I'm still trying to get at what your position is on it. Obviously, the question about the cliff is, I get your point that it shouldn't be 1.99 million, no taxes, $2 million you paid on the whole thing. So would you lower the threshold and phase it in? Would you start taxing estates at $1 million and gradually go up?
I think what you have to do is you have to tell us what are our needs going to be in 11.
Well, obviously we're going to need money.
Well,
stimulus is going to run out.
You know, listen. I think what you're really going to want is somebody who can actually manage things. And you know, I've been a mayor and I've had to raise taxes, and I've also been in a situation where we've lowered taxes. And I think that you take into consideration the circumstances at a given moment. But what I'm saying to you is that I believe ultimately Connecticut has to look and compare itself to other states. And to overtax in an area that causes you to lose jobs, whether that's income tax, sales tax, or other taxes, doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Have you ever met a human being who left Connecticut because their estate was taxed?
Well, no, because that person would be dead. I mean, with all due respect, clearly there are people who take that into. You know that.
But have you've ever met someone who said, "I'm leaving Connecticut"?
Have you ever visited Florida?
I have.
Okay.